The financial management in the broad sense is undergoing its most significant transformation, I think, since probably the early 1900s when the Investment Act came out, which we started to see the formalization of financial reporting, standardized annual reports, and really the start or the momentum of that formalization of financial reporting and communication with stakeholders. And that transformation is sort of on two levels. And the first is in data analytics. We've seen automation, we've seen cloud computing, we've seen cheaper and cheaper processing power, being able to manipulate big data. The amount of data that's collected is just utterly transforming the world, and business is no different. You can think of an example where the technology around blockchain is very soon going to be utilized to do the books for a firm. And we won't need an auditor. We won't need someone to come along and say, okay, let's find this receipt for $2,137.63 and pull it and actually check that it was there, because the blockchain is infallible. It's also changed risk management in the assurance space. The big data and the detail that in the depth that you can dig into the operations of a firm to understand their risks and their operations, that has completely changed what it means to be in assurance practice. And then the other big disruptor or big change factor is sustainability. It is completely and utterly reframed the way we measure success and redefine in many ways the purpose of the firm. When you harken back to originally what was the purpose of the firm, it was to create shareholder wealth. And so it was financially focused, and it was focused on one stakeholder, the shareholder. And so now the firm is being thought of more broadly. The stakeholders are huge. They're the community in which the firm operates. They're the countries in which they operate in. There's pollution that's put out in one country obviously doesn't stay in the air over just that one jurisdiction. It goes around the world. So really humanity is a stakeholder in the operations of pretty much every firm, and we're recognizing that. And so impacts on not just natural systems like climate, on air quality, on diversity if we're thinking about logging or oil and gas, or in the sense of ecosystem integrity, but also in social systems and the quality of the workplace and how employees are treated, and diversity in the boardroom and equity in the boardroom and inclusion, and also just across your entire workforce and your entire supply chain. So when you take those three factors in, success is no longer defined by profit loss, cash flow statements. It's your natural systems impacts and your social system impacts are equally important. So we're measuring success in a completely different way. Well, we're not completely, in the sense that financials are still important. We haven't jettisoned them entirely. We're going to rely on the engineers of the world to create a better solar panel, the scientists of the world to carbon capture, and we can name all sorts of innovations that are going to help us achieve these. But at the end of the day, we need to be able to communicate what is working well and what isn't. And that accountability and that transparency is what accountants do, right? So in the financing realm, we made sure that investors were informed to inform capital allocation. And so that same level of reporting and transparency and accountability has to carry over into natural systems and social systems so that all of the stakeholders of the world can make informed decisions. It's a lot like when we legislated that you had to put all of the contents and the calorie count and all of the nutritional information for food on the package. By reading the label, you can say, okay, I know how many calories are in a serving. I know how big a serving is. I know what nutrients I'm getting, what vitamins I'm getting, how much carbs are. All of that information is there, and that allows the consumer to make an informed choice. And so governments need to have this information about firms to make good choices about the way, industries that they're going to support and how they're going to use carrots and sticks in taxation and in regulation in order to encourage the behavior that we want from firms. If you're an investor, you need this information, and so that you can choose which firms you want to support and which ones you don't. And so it allows all of us to participate in obtaining these goals because we're informed. It goes above and beyond everyone saying, okay, well, I'm going to recycle and I'm going to try and donate clothes instead of throw them away, and doing all these things. Well, hey, now I'm going to be responsible with the products I purchase because I know what the company is doing on natural systems and social systems side. In a way, you're voting every time you spend $1 and endorsing a certain behavior from the firm. And so we have a critical role, we being globally financial managers and financial management educators, in transitioning the way in which we measure success, the way that we communicate that success, and with an integrated way that's transparent and that allows society as a whole and governments to hold all of us accountable. There's a very, very strong business case for sustainability. This shouldn't be viewed as a cost center. There are unquestionably short-term compromises that are necessary. But over the long horizon, it really does make just good business sense to act in a sustainable way. Caring and being compassionate and empathetic and creating a strong community in your workforce, they're going to be happier. They're going to interact in a positive way with your customers and your supply chain. You're going to be more competitive, and you're going to be able to attract and retain talent. And so there's a lot of benefits, and they're not immediate. Like I said, there will be short-term trade-offs. And so that's the framing that needs to happen is, yes, this needs to happen. There's an immoral imperative to do it. We want a just world. We want a healthy world that our children can grow up in, but also it just makes good business sense. I think you need to look at this as, yes, we're going to do it for all those moral reasons, but we're going to do it because it makes us more competitive. And in the long run, we're going to be a more successful firm financially as well as on natural systems and social systems fronts. When we think about strategically, where does the School of Accounting and Finance want to be positioning ourselves? We want to be on that cusp of innovation. We want to be training students to be change makers in the firms that they go and work in. Holding the firm accountable to a higher bar, A, because we have the moral responsibility to do so, but B, because that's just how good businesses are run. And I want to be part of a positive community that is successful, that's innovative, that all of the employees feel valued, that their voices are heard. And through diverse teams, that's really what, when you look at really big leaps in research and innovation, it's very rarely one individual, and we can certainly point to lots of, that the individual did this, but typically it's a multidisciplinary team where somebody comes in and says, hey, have you thought about, maybe this is stupid, but, and someone goes, wow, no, I never thought about that in that way, because in our field, we always do it this way. So that strategic thinking around always looking for that triple bottom line win, if you want to think about it that way, right? Where how can I positively impact the financial cash flows of the firm, the profit loss statement, but also how can I positively shift us in sustainability, both in natural systems and social systems. So that means that we need to keep doing everything that we were doing before, right? We need to be focusing on data and analytics. We need to be producing technically sound students, be it in finance and or accounting. Communication, surprisingly, like when you say, well, data analytics and computers and automation, and you think, oh, well, we need a bunch of computer scientists, but in reality, those social interactions are now more important than ever, because the computer is doing those mechanical, repetitive, and so now it's the creative thinking and the working in diverse teams and collaboration and innovation that comes through social interaction. And so when you talk to employers, even when I first joined the school, technical ability, modeling, that was 1 and 2, or it was certainly in the top 3. Maybe it wasn't always 1. It's way down the list now. In fact, very rarely do you hear an employer say, and when I speak of employers, I think about co-op employers or employers for our graduates, very rarely do they say, it's really important that their technical competency, I think it's a little bit just table stakes that they assume it will be there, but what we're hearing more and more from them is we need these collaborative, interdisciplinary team players that can lead, that can follow, that can think strategically, bringing in sustainability training. I've learned from my background that I just talked about, that you can't just step into sustainability, take one course and then say, okay, now I understand this. So there's a fair amount of foundational training in sustainability that's necessary. You need to be able to understand natural systems. You need to understand, well, what happens when I cut down a forest, and where does the waste go, and how can I use that waste? And so you need to have teams that understand that, and there needs to be a higher level of understanding within financial managers so they can interact with that team of biologists and social scientists and what have you. So more sustainability, continuing to focus on data analytics, and continuing to really focus on cross-disciplinary interactions as much as we possibly can to hone those communication and collaboration skills in our students. And then also recognize that we have a very meaningful role in post-graduation, post-certification education. So we have to be constantly looking at how are things shifting, be more integrated with industry than maybe we have in the past. As things transform and change more quickly, we have to be more adaptive and have just our fingers on the pulse of what's happening and what the demand is in the world for financial managers. We are coming off of our 5-year strategic plan, and we will be looking to embrace those opportunities and challenges and reforming. We've done a lot of the work already. We've already restructured the AFM program. It's more diverse with 6 specializations now. We have a sustainability specialization, we have the data analytics specialization. So I think we're positioned very well. We don't need to do a lot of dramatic changes. We just need to focus on the changes that we make and keep innovating them, and then also spread them throughout our curriculum, where it's fantastic that we have a data analytics specialization and sustainability, and we have data analytics courses, but we need to pull in data analytics applications into 3rd and 4th year accounting courses. And sustainability needs to be, you need foundational elements, which we'll be working on, and then it needs to be folded into a lot of our upper level coursework. So data analytics and sustainability don't happen in isolation. They permeate and impact pretty much everything that we're doing. So how does sustainability impact management accounting? How does it report, we've talked about now, it's transforming financial to become integrated reporting. Strategic thinking, how do you do evaluation and adjust for the social systems impacts of the firm when before it was predominantly cash flows driven? Like, you can see how it just permeates throughout. So that will be our focus in the near term, is that integration of those elements into all of our coursework, and continuing to evolve and adapt and innovate. It's really an exciting time to be in this profession of financial management. To be at the forefront of change is exciting, and I think as a school we're ready for that challenge and excited for it.